At a bus station in New York, Joe arrives for the first time in the city. However, as soon as he gets off the bus, he is robbed multiple times and loses all his money. Later, he sets off in search of an apartment, only to be shocked by the sky-high rents, even in the worst buildings in the city. While walking the streets in search of a house, Joe comes across a man lying on the sidewalk. But the moment he rushes to help, the man suddenly gets up and checks his stopwatch. The man named Walter reveals that he had been lying there on purpose, but no one even bothered to check on him for more than 2 days. As they talk, Walter remarks that Joe doesn't look like he's from New York, and Joe reveals that he comes from Iowa and is looking for an apartment in the city. However, he doesn't have much money at the moment and hopes to find an apartment that costs less than $100 a month. Upon hearing this, Walter mocks him along with everyone else in the shop, as Walter explains that these apartments are extremely difficult to find because residents rarely leave the place. Meanwhile, on one of the old buildings, 2 thugs set a trap in the stairwell using a wire. At that moment, an elderly woman steps out of her apartment. As she walks past the wire, she trips and falls several floors without stopping, ultimately hitting the ground and fainting. However, to everyone's astonishment, she immediately gets up, dusts herself off, and walks away as if nothing had happened. Same time as Joe and Walter come across the old woman leaving her building, but as soon as she steps out of the building, she falls to the ground, dying instantly. Quickly, Walter has an idea and pretends that the old woman is Joe's mother so that he can inherit her apartment and finally have a place to live. When he arrives at the apartment, Joe realizes that the place is extremely dirty. As Joe inspects the apartment, several talking cockroaches watch him, discussing their new companion. Looking for something to eat, he picks up a piece of bread and, even after noticing a cockroach hidden in it, doesn't mind and eats it immediately. The cockroaches realize that Joe is cool and crazy and can be a good companion in the apartment, like the old woman. After some time, Joe contacts his mother on the phone, unaware that the 2 thugs are eavesdropping on the conversation from outside the door. The pair introduce themselves as Vlad and Jesus, revealing that they are the landlords, and demand rent from Joe worth $50. Meanwhile, in a nearby building, a woman named Lily is watering her flowers in the garden when her friend Blank arrives and comments that she doesn't understand why Lily chooses to live there, one of the most unsafe places in the city. Blank points out that Lily could live with her father, one of the most successful senators in the city, but Lily has a different vision for the place. Meanwhile, Lily's father, Senator Doherty, receives a visit from Alberto, accompanied by Vlad and Jesus. Alberto is the owner of the building where Joe lives and claims that the last resident has been evicted and given another apartment, not knowing that Alberto is lying. With this accomplishment, Doherty reveals his plan to construct a maximum security prison in the place, and once the prison is constructed, Alberto will get paid. Meanwhile, in the apartment, as Joe sleeps on his sofa, a group of cockroaches grow more and more excited, realizing that the man doesn't care about cleanliness, which delights them. At that moment, Vlad and Jesus break in, and as they begin destroying everything, a terrified Joe hides on his blanket. Noticing that they may be in danger as well, the cockroaches group together and plan a coordinated attack on the invaders and move around inside the sofa, preparing to save Joe. When the 2 head in Joe's direction, they are shocked to see his face covered in cockroaches. After scaring their enemies, one of the cockroaches flies into Jesus' face and mocks Vlad, who, enraged by the insults, begins firing his machine gun at the cockroaches. However, despite creating a large hole in the wall, they miss every shot. And when they attempt to reload their weapons, they are stopped by the cockroaches, which spread out around them, surrounding them on all sides. Immediately afterward, one of the roaches pulls at the carpet on which the men are standing, causing them to fall to the ground. With the thugs completely defeated, the cockroaches order them to leave and never try to hurt Joe again. Extremely frightened, Vlad and Jesus take off running, but as they do, their shoelaces are pulled, causing them to fall down the stairs just like what they did to the old woman. Meanwhile, Joe, who witnesses everything, tries to get away from the cockroaches, who calm him down, saying that they admire his way of life. For this reason, they have decided to protect him. Joe is surprised to discover that the cockroaches can talk, and one of them reveals that they can do much more than that. Together, all the cockroaches put on a musical performance, but makes Joe falls asleep. The next day, Joe wakes up thinking it was all just a nightmare and goes into the kitchen to have breakfast while reading his comic book and unknowingly prepares a cereal-filled cockroaches. After narrowly avoiding eating them, the Roaches leaders Ralph and Rodney Roach introduces themselves. The leaders claim that at least 40,000 cockroaches are living inside the apartment and wants to make a deal to live together in harmony. But Joe tries to crush one of them on the table, but the impact causes a pan from the cupboard to fall on his head. Furious, Joe decides to leave for work and gets on his bike to start his shift delivering pizza. The cockroaches, however, wants to help and pursue him on his job, but only makes his situation worse, causing him to be fired from all the jobs. While he sleeps, the cockroaches gather around him. At that moment, a stray cat invades the apartment, causing all the insects to flee, desperately hiding in the surrounding area. The problem is that little Ralph can't hide in time. Cornered by the stray cat, he tries to distract it while a cowboy cockroach uses a string to lasso the animal's tail. At the same moment, the cat goes completely berserk, running all over the place in an attempt to free itself. Amidst the chaos, the animal crashes into Joe's aquarium, sending his goldfish flying and lands directly inside Joe's mouth. The cat then leaps after the roach, but ends up on Joe's face. And even though Joe manages to remove the cat on his face, it leaves him with scratches, which angers him more, and orders the roaches to stop following him on his jobs, and they promise they won't bother him anymore. The next morning, Joe feels more motivated to look for a new job, but as soon as he leaves his building, a bucket of paint is dumped on his head. Walter appears, announcing that this is his newest work, called Instant Minority. As they walk through the streets, they witness several shootouts between police and criminals. Walter tells Joe that he no longer has to worry about finding a job. He can become the newest drummer in his band. Excited, Joe hangs up posters for his new band, when he bumps into Lily, who is doing the same. She explains that she is trying to publicize the new community garden in the area, where they will plant flowers and build a playground for children to enjoy, and Joe offers to help. That night, Joe tries to write a romantic letter to Lily, but is interrupted by the cockroaches in the building, who try to give Joe some weird advices. After being interrupted numerous times, Joe becomes enraged and lunges toward the insects, causing him to fall off the roof and onto the balcony of one of the apartments. There, he realizes that their advices might be useful. The next day, Joe goes to the city center and chases the local animals, collecting waste from several animals to create fertilizer for the garden. After completing the task, he heads to Lily's garden, where he finds her embracing a mysterious man, and realizes that the man is her boyfriend, and Joe feels saddened. But it is revealed to be Doherty meeting her daughter, and wants to tell her about the maximum security prison he is planning to build in the same area where Lily plans to build the garden. Outraged, Lily rebuts her father, saying that until her gardening license expires, she will have the support of all the residents of the neighborhood to prevent the prison from being built. Back at the apartment, Joe checks his mail, and after distributing dozens of letters sent to his cockroach friends, discovers that he has received a letter from his mother. In the message, the woman says she has managed to find a job for her son at a urinal deodorizer company, whose owner is a friend from high school. Excited, Joe goes to the job interview with the owner of the company and spends several hours answering questions from the old man, who still has strong feelings for Joe's mother. But in return, Joe gets hired, and when he goes to the place where he has been assigned, he realizes that he will have to collect all the products used in the toilets of Yankee Stadium. After a long day at work, Joe returns home to rest, but one of the cockroaches tells him that the fertilizers have sprouted a new flower plant. The next day, Joe takes the flower plant to Lily, which amazes her as it is a very rare flower. After a few minutes of conversation, she notices one of the sanitary products that have been collected. But Joe lies and explains that the objects are garden perfumes. Believing this, Lily asks him to bring her even more perfumes so that she can spread them all over the community garden. However, Joe tells her that he will only do this if she goes to see his band, which is performing that evening, and with no other choice, she accepts the offer. A few hours later, Joe arrives at his company's building when he suddenly sees his boss being arrested. One of the women reveals that a feminine products company will take their place in the building, causing Joe to be fired once again. That night, Lily and Blank go to the town's nightclub to watch Joe's band play on stage. The problem is that Joe is terrible on the drums, and Walter decides to make fun of him, causing Joe to leave. But Lily goes after him to try to console him. When asked about her supposed boyfriend, she reveals that it was her father who had been hugging her the day before. As they walk, a car passes by and accidentally splashes water on them, and Joe offers to dry themselves in his apartment. As they enter, the cockroaches manage to hide, but only on Lily's eyes, as Joe notices them even under the couch where Lily sits. The cockroaches get excited watching from a chandelier, but when they notice that the pair are about to kiss, they become more and more excited, swaying from side to side. At that moment, the chandelier breaks and hundreds of cockroaches fall on the couple, leaving them extremely terrified. Lily quickly runs down the stairs in shock, and as she leaves the building, she finds out that the garden has been completely destroyed and incinerated. When she sees that the whole place has been vandalized, Lily assumes it was done by the community and leaves. However, it is revealed that Vlad and Jesus were responsible for it. Meanwhile, Joe decides he will no longer tolerate the presence of cockroaches in his home and prepares to start a war against the insects. After a few minutes away, he returns as Rambo Joe and uses a poison grenade, causing all the cockroaches to flee in desperation to escape the insecticide. Rambo Joe then throws cockroach baits everywhere. In return, one of the roach throws a trap at him, causing Joe to slip and fall to the ground, fainting instantly. During the chaos, Jesus and Vlad arrive at the building and begin pouring gasoline all over the place to set it on fire. Meanwhile, Joe regains consciousness and realizes he has been completely tied up by the roaches, who intend to finish him off with the poisonous spray. Just as Joe is about to be eliminated by the roaches, the fire causes an explosion, sending the cockroaches running. Fortunately, Joe manages to free himself and tries to escape from the building and ends up tripping and falling down the stairs, landing outside, escaping death. The next morning, Joe wakes up in the rubble and finds a large sign that says the Manhattan prison will soon be built on the place. Later that night, Joe realizes that he can no longer live in New York and declares to go back to Iowa, but Vlad and Jesus knocks him off and leave. At that moment, Ralph and Rodney find Joe passed out in the rubble and feel extremely guilty about the situation he's in. They form a plan to help him and infiltrate the city's registry office, working through the night to alter records about Joe and the building. At dawn, the Roaches continue with their mission and collect thousands of flowers and plants throughout New York to rebuild Lily's garden. The Roaches then steal the large replica of the toilet perfume from Joe's former boss and take it to the large pool of water, which cleans the water in a small pond and finishes rebuilding the garden. After several hours, Joe wakes up and is surprised to realize that the building has been transformed into a garden. And as he sits on the bench made from the prison sign, the cockroaches throw a deed at him, saying that from that day forward, the park belongs to him. At the same time, Doherty and Lily arrive on the place, and the senator becomes confused, as he thought there would be nothing more than a vacant lot. After seeing this, Lily runs to the center of the park, where the Roaches unite to form a romantic message on behalf of Joe, who appears at the same moment to apologize for everything he has put her through. Joe then gives the deed to Lily and tells her that she is now the owner of the place. Shortly after, Doherty congratulates them on their incredible idea and reveals that he no longer intends to use the place to build a prison. As Doherty announces this changes to the people, Alberto, Jesus, and Vlad appear and observe, and planning to eliminate everyone in the park. But as they discuss this, the Roaches appears and drop them in one of the manholes. Later that night, while Joe is taking a bath on Lily's place, he receives a visit from Ralph, who apologizes for everything they have caused in his life, and Joe accepts and thanks them for helping him as well. After that, as Joe and Lily prepares to sleep, all the Roaches celebrate having found a new home on the penthouse of one of the tallest buildings in New York City. See you in our next film, Flash. Thank you for watching.